Hello, this is YouTube channel 100 Green, YouTube channel of Green Transformation of Ukraine. I'm Dmitry Vasilyev, and our guest today is Karolina Cegir, Senior Gas Expert, Energy Community. Topic is tackling methane emission by the energy industry, and we have quite intensive questions and quite intensive time with Karolina. Karolina, thank you very much for taking your time for this interview. Welcome.
Thank you, Vasily, and good afternoon. And thank you for invitation and for opening actually this very important topic, which is coming more and more important nowadays.
Yes, thank you. And you're absolutely right. Energy industry causes about 40% of methane emissions. Methane's impact about 30% for global warming. But we need energy. And what should we do to decrease these emissions, from your perspective?
First thing is that for years we were focused only on CO2 emissions. I mean, with fully rights, because this is the third 3/4 of all emissions, and then going from burning for heat, for electricity in transport sector. But methane emissions actually are not so harmless like they were always perceived before, because we always used to, I mean, I am the one using this narrative for ages. Like, yeah, this is fine, but methane is less present in the atmosphere. It's only 12 years. However, in those 12 years is actually doing more harm to environment than CO2, and this is really on the scale of 85 times more than CO2. And then another narrative is actually just perceiving fossil fuels and this old fossil energy industry as a bad guys, and then they have to be cancelled, and we are not going to do anything with them, which is again wrong, because this is the industry which has the knowledge. They know, I mean, energy industry knows how they produce emissions, and especially methane emissions, and they can do the most to cancel these emissions. So energy industry is the one, especially, I mean, oil and gas industry, but coal industry as well, which can contribute very quickly to reduce those emissions. And there are several initiatives going on already and providing results.
Wonderful. And of course, these kind of organizations, European and global organizations like yours, energy community impacts to this process. So perhaps you could tell a little bit more about energy community activities on this issue. What energy community does, and what is the commitment of countries like Ukraine towards those activities?
First thing is that energy community and energy community secretariat then is actually based on the treaty, and this treaty in very core of activities has monitoring of mandatory legislation. So this is one layer, and it's important to say that actually there is still not even legislation on European Union level which actually deals with methane emissions by the energy industry. So this is still under development. Is expected that it's going to be approved and adopted by the end of this year, following the methane emission strategy of European Union. What Energy Community Secretariat started to do in this process few years ago, actually in 2019, when it was kind of opening of this topic by the gas industry in European Union, Secretariat perceived this as a proper timing to involve energy community contracting parties industry in these activities, in this process, just for the first time being from the first step in that process, not lagging behind and waiting that this legislation is going to come first to European Union and then to the contracting parties. That's why we took this active approach, and this is on several layers. So one was layer cooperation with European and international organizations which are dealing with methane emissions. So, but this is kind of in our DNA because we are organization to cooperate. Yeah. And that was really transfer of knowledge and kind of showing the others that what contracting parties are doing and what they have in place, and then bringing this knowledge to another side to the contracting parties. That's why we started with Methane Mondays webinars as a really educational platform, very easy in COVID time, everything online, presenters and participants, and then really going topic by topic to explain it, to discuss it, and that was all. This is already for the third year, so we will see if this still have purpose and added value by the end of this year. What is for me actually the most important and most astonishing and really count on this as an achievement is that we approached the gas industry of the contracting parties, Ukraine of course included, explaining what European industry is doing on voluntary level, because there is still no obligation, legal obligation, and our contracting parties, our companies from contracting parties took this really seriously, really seeing the benefits and starting to assess their own emissions on the same questionnaire, on the same methodology like European industry did it before. And this is how we started in 2019, 2020, and now it's kind of a regular process, the companies assessing their emissions. Ukrainian companies, because this is anyhow the biggest gas sector, were the most active. So from Ukrainian companies, we have really covered transmission system, the biggest portion of production, storages, and then big portion really of distribution systems. So even we got the data for 2022. For 23, we will see. I mean, with all these war issues and war difficulties, even in kind of collecting the data and then publishing data, but nevertheless, Ukrainian companies and then Naftogaz and TSO actually, especially they were here. They even during this learning process of what are methane emissions and what gas industry of Europe is doing, they joined this so-called OGMP 2.0 framework, which stands for Oil and Gas Methane Partnership, but under the UN, and they joined there again voluntary and started to report and to planning to go from level 1 to level 5. Level 1 stands if you just have assessment and you have maybe one factor for entire, total assets which you have, and then going to more details, which is, and level 5 would mean then you really measure almost for everything, your emissions. So companies from Ukraine are already in that activities actually very advanced. I mean, if we compare not only for contracting parties, but also with European Union gas industry.
Yeah. Talking about this obligatory or voluntary base, I would like to mention Global Methane Pledge. In the COP26 in Glasgow, 150 countries signed this Global Methane Pledge. From your perspective, do you think it's just a declaration by these countries or a real commitment of them to capture methane? Because some researchers say that countries might hide up to 70% of methane emission in their reports. What is your perspective here?
And from one side, global methane pledge, I would say it's a great signal. We still don't know if will bring results or not, but it's really great signal that it's really recognized that methane emissions are those defining the speed of global warming. We don't have now 100 years to deal with CO2 and then to reduce this CO2. If we really tackle methane emissions, and methane is there for 12 years, but doing more harm than CO2, so 12 years, this is the next decade. Yep. So global methane pledge is actually recognition by global players, by global policymakers that methane and decrease of this methane is crucial to stop the speed of warming and to somehow turn this needle on another side. Commitments, as any other political commitments, can be very strong, can be not so strong. So we will see that. For me, here is the more important actually cooperation even on a national level, because even now we have, and for years already from Paris Agreement, there is obligation to actually report your methane emissions. Then different countries, being Annex 1, being non-Annex 1 countries, they have different methodologies. Sometimes in the countries, and this is not just referring to Ukraine, this is really global issue. Sometimes you have Ministry of Environment doing this assessment, but not actually taking into account what companies are already doing on the same assessment, or having difficulties, and then methane is especially difficult because methane emissions from agricultural sector, this is another story. This has to be somehow assessed, and then you have different methodologies or not enough data and so on and so on. For energy sector, actually, it should not be so difficult because you have companies, those companies are anyhow reporting on their performing. Even if they are a regulator, they are reporting on their losses. I mean, here I think on network operators. For production, there is again entire set of reporting factors which our companies are doing. Sometimes, if it's not really well baked with the legal framework, or if it's wrong, if companies are somehow more pushed not to report to having benefits, then we have this twisted system which is not right, and which has to be adjusted and improved and so on. If this is really 70% differences, I really cannot say. I would say that must depends on country or on sector or.
Yeah, exactly. Karolina, there is something which we call force majeure, but perhaps also a circle of the history. We have this horrible war, aggression of Russia against Ukraine, all those strikes on our energy system. And that what energy community is doing is a real help and support to Ukraine, because you are coordinating, energy community is coordinating those international efforts to support Ukraine and our energy system and resilience of our energy systems. In context of methane emission, I have a question for you. If with your planning to support and operational activities to purchase any kind of necessary installations, energy installations, to repair energy infrastructure, do you look into this keen issue of decreasing methane emissions as well? Or you are not that keen on this issue by helping Ukraine to be resilient with these attacks?
Difficult question.
Yes, it is a difficult question.
Yeah. Also, illustrating that we have to talk about methane emissions in the context of war and destroyment of of energy infrastructure as well. So what we are doing in the Secretariat, actually, we have two lines. So one we called task force for support of Ukraine, and then another is actually support fund.
Yes.
They're both doing the same. They are communicating with the Ministry of Energy, and Ministry of Energy actually collect all requirements from energy companies in terms of equipment. And then the difference here is that through this support task force, actually, there are goods from other side, which other companies or countries, companies mainly, deliver this voluntary. So this is really donation. Mm-hmm. While through this support fund, actually, the same needs are going through tender and through actually ensuring the finance and then equipment bought on tenders. But nevertheless, through these tables which are receiving from the ministry, and then we see the needs of companies. Many things of gas companies actually are related to repair, to detection, and how to prevent these methane emissions, because at the end, when the pipeline is damaged, you have methane emissions in the atmosphere. So not just doing harm to population and to equipment, but also doing harm to environment.
Yes.
So I cannot say that we are doing this massively, that we, I don't know, see massive need for detectors of methane emissions in future. We see a lot of equipment, and this is then purchased and delivered to Ukraine. A lot of this equipment which serves reparation of the pipes. Mm-hmm. So this is for now. Entire, aim and framework which is now putting into place, this is this recovery Ukraine in future. So energy systems to be recovered, repurposed, readjusted, and in line with actually environmental requirements and in line with requirements of not having emissions. So this I see coming more these sophisticated technologies and detectors and so on in the next stage. Now is the first stage. This first stage is really reparation of pipes, and then actually repairing the pipe, you are eliminating these emissions which are going on due to damage.
Absolutely. And again, thank you for this great support which energy community provides to Ukraine as being a coordinating party and partner. Coming back to the methane emissions and Ukraine in particular, I must say that I'm meeting different businesses here in Ukraine who is keen to understand that actually methane is a new gold, what they can capture and to sell.
Yeah.
And for business, it's a matter of very quick decisions to make sure that actually it is possible to produce and to capture methane to sell it. They think like business. It's a nature of business. But for the government and for Ukraine as on a political level, as policy making, of course, that's an issue still to discuss and take decisions what to do to make Ukraine efficient. But for your perspective and your observations, how do you see Ukraine in this process of capturing emission, preventing methane emissions, and making some policies to do it? And what is your suggestion for the future of Ukraine, still within this horrible war which is going on, and after our victory of Ukraine, victory of democratic world? What policies should be implemented here in our country, in Ukraine, to make it one of the champions in Europe to decrease methane emissions?
As for many other things, has great potential. And this is actually the case for decreasing methane emissions as well, because you have so huge energy sector. I mean, thousands and thousands of kilometers of pipes,
Yep.
which are, if they are monitoring properly, then this leak can be really very slow. I mean, very low and actually almost zero. So this is from one thing. Then you have big production of gas, but also oil, and those are sources for methane emissions just on another part of the chain, because emissions are happening here at different stage of the process. And this is actually what the International Energy Agency always says, that actually 70% of methane emissions by gas and oil industry can be cancelled with almost no cost, just to changing this procedures and how process is settled. So no venting and not flaring of gas.
Mm-hmm.
So and then companies are coming into the perspective, because I mean, Ukrainian companies are not different than any other, and especially not US companies, because in US this entire process is actually economically driven, because each molecule of methane which is not in the air is in pipe, and when it's in pipe can be sold. So this is clear economical reason. In Ukraine, actually, it's always very interesting, and I really following Ukraine for 10 years, the gas sector for 10 years. It's always astonishing to see how quickly the business pick up ideas and trends which are going on globally or in European Union. So this is really new goal, because having the methane in pipe, and anyhow you need new sources. This is going to be a commercial case for the companies. From other side, policy makers also following these issues which are going on, and now I believe with all this aim to really recover Ukraine in most prosperous, environmental friendly, energy efficiency, new energies way, it's going to be from one side challenge, because a lot of things has to be at one place and well harmonized and so on. But I would say that Ukrainian government actually recognized this global methane pledge as a tool to go further, because there is regulation, decree, actually not regulation, then decree to make this operational. So not to put just commitment and not doing many further actions, but really to set up the framework, and especially for energy industry. And this is already starting to have the shape. Now, next steps, as always, should be in place, and those next steps would be really to have a kind of strategic approach to all three industries. I mean, all three: oil, gas, and coal. Then to really set up, but not just obligations, but also incentiveness for the companies to really do properly monitoring, reporting, and then set up the targets how to decrease these emissions, and also then recognize that actually all these activities, I mean, if TSO or DSO, for example, for your listeners, that would be transmission system operator and distribution system operator. If they have to check pipelines more often, So for this more often, this is more working hours, this is maybe more equipment. So this has to be recognized, of course, in their cost, and this has to be in tariffs. But it's not just burden, then somebody would say, oh yeah, this is in tariff for system operator and this is going to be their income. No, this has to be linked together with all these requirements which the state and which actually all of us at the earth have towards environment. So this has to be put nicely together, and this is then place for policymakers to make it in strategic approach and strategic documents. Secretariat actually this year and last year was very focused on Ukraine and methane emissions, and with support of consultants. I mean, we had 3 different consultants, and through this EU for climate framework, I mean financing, there are 3 very nice documents and recommendations exactly for Ukraine and what to do in regards to methane emissions in energy sector. So one is really analyzes what is missing in legal terms and what is missing in practice. I mean, global industry and then Ukrainian industry practice. Then focus on really this leak detection and repair. So what are the practices recommended from European Union and from UN, and what is in Ukraine, and even tackling the issue which is also very important, and this is what is actually the baseline. I am not saying that if you don't know baseline, don't do anything, because you don't know how much you will reduce. No, start with the action and do reduction, because this is important. It's important to react in this first decade and to stop global warming. But what is important in that sense, what is the baseline, is actually to put, and you also mentioned already through UN framework. So at different institutions and in different reports are different data. So focus should be also to put this data on the same level and to compare them. And to really admit, fine, for 5 years, for 10 years, we reported actually basically lower numbers because our methodology was not detailed enough. But now we have another one, we have our companies doing their own assessments. So let's put this together. Let's be honest in our reporting and to put this in the same framework, because at the end, this is anyhow relevant for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And of course, also for Ukraine and for better future of our continent. Karolina, we are finalizing our this interview, and if you wish to give some finalization remarks, also with focus on Ukraine, for Ukraine, so please do, and we'll be finishing this conversation of this time on methane emission.
Thank you for once again for opportunity to stress this topic, which is actually very important, and it's important for Ukraine. And here I would like to say that actually Ukraine, even before this global methane pledge, and before actually somehow global society recognized this methane as an important one, started to do many actions already. Naftogaz through EBRD, TSO, DSOs through this Marco-gas assessment and so on, and putting elder practices similar like European ones. So I am confident that you are going to continue in that way and even faster, because now it's again business opportunity. So a little bit of entire framework should be in place, and this should be in line with this recovery and everything what is actually already clear for everyone what will happen after Ukrainian victory.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, our soldiers are bringing us to this victory on the front line, and definitely all of us together, we are bringing Ukraine to the victory on our energy front. And once again, we would like to thank to you personally, Karolina, for your personal long-standing efforts, and to energy community for coordinating these important activities to make our energy system resilient and to survive during these barbarian attacks, even this heating winter season, which already began. And every day we are fighting to make sure that Ukrainians can be with the electricity and heating over this winter time. Thank you so much, Karolina. Thank you for your interview and time, and thank you for your special and important efforts. Thank you.
Thank you for the speech and good luck. And I'm confident that this winter will be much better than the last one, because Ukrainian system provided and confirmed resilience.
Absolutely. And Slava Ukraini.
Героям слава.
Дякую. Bye-bye, Karolina. All the best.
All the best.
Thank you.